What is up, Fitzlife? I am so excited to bring you this podcast today, this episode with my good friend, trainer, and Extend Bar creator and founder, Andrea Rogers. Andrea Rogers is tiny but mighty. She has a heart of gold. And I will tell you the philosophies that she has about life, the philosophies that she has around routine and honoring intentionality in your life will just leave you better than when she found you. So I cannot wait to introduce this episode to you. Sit down, grab a coffee, and listen in. All right, welcome back to the Fitzlife Unfiltered. All right, you guys, I am so excited. I'm doing a solo episode today, and I have a guest on this podcast, and I cannot even wait for you to meet her. There's going to be a lot of you that already know who this guest is. She is small but mighty. She is one of my favorite add-ons. Every single day I add her on from the body platform, and we do 12 minutes together from our XB Pilates, and we do all the extras. So without further ado, I cannot wait to introduce Andrea Rogers as our guest today on the podcast. Andrea, I am so glad you're here.
You are amazing. I just love your energy. I'm happy to be here. So happy to talk all the things.
Well, I just was tangled in my cord, so here I am.
Well, it's a lot. It's a lot. Tangled in life, tangled in cords, always figure it out.
I think so. Exactly. So, we run this podcast in a very casual way. So we always just love to have good conversations and riff back and forth, which I feel like we just did over dinner in the last few weeks. And we talked about all things skincare and pelvic floor. And that's where we really were
all the things
we need to do I know it's Andrea.
Hey there.
This is Tess. I'm filming a podcast. So we're going to just edit this part out, but that's okay. You good?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll tell you right after. Okay. 20 minutes. Okay. I'll be right up. Okay. I love you.
That right there is my life, by the way. That is my life.
We will probably not be editing out because it's the Fitzlife Unfiltered, and that is real life.
That is real life. That is me constantly on a Zoom, trying not to look while my kids are behind my camera, trying to talk to me as if I'm not already engaged in a conversation and asking me things. And then, every time I'm on a Zoom. Yeah.
This is real life. This is real life. So real life. I want to start this podcast by for everyone getting to know you a little bit. Your story is powerful, and how you started your business and your profession. And oh my gosh, there's so much for people to know about you. So I would love for you I want to learn even more about you, because I've heard your story, but I know there's going to be other parts that you may share today. And I would just love to know where you started, how you started, and who is Andrea Rogers?
Big question. Well, let's talk about how I got started in the fitness industry, because I think that, a lot of people assume that I started as someone that was in the fitness career, like a lot of people, right? Personal training or group fitness classes. And I actually started as a dancer. So I grew up dancing from a very young age. My mom put me in dance when I was 3 years old, and I just never looked back. And I fell in love with movement. I really did. I fell in love with music. I fell in love with movement. I fell in love with the way that movement made me feel. It made me come alive. It made me, it just excited every sense. And I carried that with me into adulthood. And it was during the time that I was going to college and doing the thing that you're supposed to do, right? I was going to the university. I was taking classes. I was getting ready to live the adult life. And I received a notification that there was an audition for Disney. And I called my dad, and it was 4:30 at night. And the audition was in Toronto. And I was living in Michigan at the time. I grew up in Michigan. And Toronto, the audition was 4.5 hours from where we lived. And so I called my dad, and I'm like, Dad. First, I called my mom, and she said, call your dad. And then I called my dad and said, Dad, there's an audition, and I really want to go. And it's tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. And again, this was 4:30 p.m. And he's like, all right, I'm coming home from work. So that's just how my parents were. They were just incredibly supportive, and jumped in the car, auditioned. And that was my first professional dance gig that I got. And from there, it kind of just, again, the love of movement and the love of performing and the love of connecting with other people, just it just was lit, and the fuse was always there, and it was always bright, and it was always I was on fire with movement. I just loved to dance and I loved to feel that energy. So coming off of dancing professionally, I toured, I danced with some professional dance companies. I took some time off from college and then went back to college, which again, thank God my parents were like, yes, you can. And then after graduating from school, I was like, well, now what? Like, what the heck? What now? Like, I'm supposed to get a real job, you know? And dancers have a very short time frame which they can dance professionally. And I knew I wasn't gonna I'd met someone, my ex-husband at the time, and we were moving to Florida. I'm like, I guess I'll get a real job.
Right.
You know, I guess I'll get like a job. So I thought, well, what's creative? What is going to like fill me and fuel me creatively? So I found out there was an advertising agency hiring. So I got a job. I lasted 6 weeks, girl. 6 weeks. And I was like, yeah, I cannot physically sit behind a desk. Like,
I
I don't know
love
how
this.
creative I am in my mind. I had to connect creativity with movement. And so I decided to go back and dive into Pilates. I had been introduced to Pilates as a professional dancer. One of my choreographers was like, girl, you got to do this to all of us to stay healthy, right? So that our bodies wouldn't get injured. And so I loved Pilates and I knew it, but not in depth. And so I decided, okay, this is it. I'm going to become a Pilates instructor. So I took a very in-depth course. It was a year certification. And then after that year, we had to teach for like 6 months before we were even allowed to have our own class kind of thing, you know? So it was a long period, but I just loved it. I loved the scientific approach to movement. I loved the thought process behind Pilates. And I knew very early on that knowing this type of movement was going to be a game changer for me, no matter what I did in the movement field. And so I just fell in love with Pilates, and that's where the spark for Extend Bar happened.
I love that so much. And then now that came out of New York, right? Did you do Extend Bar in New York?
No, the funny thing is I launched Extend Bar when I was living in South Florida, in Boca Raton, Florida. I launched Extend Bar in a tiny little studio in South Florida. I approached the owner. I'm like, hey, everyone's doing this bar thing. I want to try it. Can I try my own version of it? And I wanted to fuse more dance and choreography into it and marry it with my Pilates training. And then that's how Extend Bar was born. And then from there, it grew to a license and a franchise. And then I moved to New York. So,
right. Okay. So that's where that came from. I was always like, how did that get started? Oh my gosh. I love that so much. And I would ask this too, because you've done a few different programs with Body.
Yes.
And you've been able to bring in and infuse your expertise. What would you say has been your most favorite that you've created? Your most favorite program that you've created?
My favorite program, and I'm not just saying this because it comes out soon, is XP Pilates, Super Block. And everybody will tell you, my director of education, Jen, I'm like, Jen, this is my favorite one we've ever done. Number one, I love the content that we are providing. I think the actual workouts are so effective in changing the game. I think they're the fundamentals of movement. And I think anybody that does this program will see vast changes in everything they do. They'll be able to lift heavier, run further, sit with better posture, breathe it better, sleep better. Everything will be better because the body awareness is improved. And then on top of all of the effectiveness of the workout, I had the best time filming this. It was so much fun. I loved our cast, Bria and Justin. We're like best friends. And so coming to shoot every single day, and the podcast was just the most incredible people. And I just had a really great experience with it and felt really proud of the product that we created.
That's amazing. Now, you and I talked at length about pelvic floor.
Yes,
and I think this is okay. I think we need to go here because, it was interesting. So to those that are listening, and you've heard me talk about this before, I'm like this, I used to be a part of the club where I would say, oh, but you've had kids, you pee when, like, it's like the club you're in, you just pee when you sneeze. And that's, and I'm finally learning, and I'm so grateful for this, and again, that could have been my ignorance, but it's like, it's not part of a club you need to stay in. And I think there's a lot of misinformation about that, so I've done a few things, but I know that the work that I've been doing when I'm doing because you're very cue oriented. Like, for those of you that have not yet done any of Andrea Rogers' programs or felt her work, you need the sample workout that will be in the podcast show notes. You need to try this.
Yes, please.
Yes, please. You need to try this, but also what I've learned about this from being able to do your work and listening to you is you are constantly cueing us to be so aware of our bodies.
Yeah.
And I think that is, I'd love a little bit of your insight on that and your teachings because, I think it's a disservice to women. And I loved what you just said, like you will be able to lift heavier. And I have been like, I've been able to get into the gym and lifting my barbell without feeling like the heaviness of my pelvic floor. And I don't think we listen to that enough, right?
It's so true. You know what? That is something that I think a lot of us ignore. It's almost like a taboo kind of thing. When you talk about working out, you're always like, oh, I want to have a bigger derriere, smaller waist, flatter abs, sleeker arms, toned legs. It's all the cliche stuff. But at the end of the day, you really want to have a functional body, right? You want to have a body that moves you through life. That gets you through life. Like today, I was taking my mom to the airport and I had to take down her massive suitcases from upstairs, and I'm like, I can do this. And I'm not doing it by leaning and throwing my shoulder out. I'm doing it because I'm engaging my abs and my pelvic floor muscles. So I think about this throughout my day and I'm able to move through life in a safe and healthy way. And so that's always my goal with my programs is I want everybody to, yes, get all those beautiful physical benefits that we all want, but I want everybody to feel the power of knowing your body and how to properly move your body. And in that case, and what we're talking about is engaging through the pelvic floor muscles to help support your core strength and your whole functional movement. So for me, again, back to my Pilates training, as we train as Pilates instructors, we really learn the power of the pelvic floor muscles in connection to our abdominal muscles. So specifically our transverse abdominis, the deepest layer of abdominals, which isn't necessarily something that we typically feel. We always think about abs, we think about the rectus abdominis, that six pack or we do, focus on the obliques, but very little do we often think about our core engaging our pelvic floor, right? And so it doesn't take much. It's not like, oh my God, how in the world will I engage my pelvic floor? Once you learn how to do it and you do your Kegels, the point is you have to continuously do it. You have to over and over and think about it. You have to constantly give it some attention and some love. and just like anything else, consistency will drive results. And so after you do these type of programs and you're hearing my cues and you're thinking about engaging your pelvic floor muscles in connection with ab engagement and good posture and form and all of the firing off all the other muscles, all of a sudden you're like sneezing or coughing or laughing or jumping and you're like, oh my God, my pelvic floor is stronger. I didn't realize it. And then once you go there, you never go back because it just feels really good to move your body and do it in a way that feels really strong.
Yeah, I love that. Andrea recorded. Do you remember when you recorded that cheer message for Tessie? And that was the best. And I know I have a lot of moms and a lot of parents of athletes that are listening to this podcast. And, one of the things that was so crucial and it was so sweet. Andrea just took my phone. She put her face right up to camera, was like, Tessie, listen, Lady Gaga does this. And it is her pre-warm up for this. And this is why you need to get these muscles. You need to get these core muscles, the stabilizer muscles for your cheer. And it was so awesome because it wasn't me saying naggy. It was like, but there's a reason why, and that's what the other thing that I love too, behind everything it feels like you do, Andrea, and I'd love some insight on this. It's like you're so intentional. You are so intentional with your workouts. You're intentional with your moves. You're intentional with how you put things together. Also in your life, I feel like that too. Like you're just so you're so intentional. So it's like, I'd even love to unpack that a little bit for moms that are listening. It's like, hey, there's more to just pressing a play on a program for your kids. Like this, there's more to this. Like they're even for themselves. Like there's more to the things that are going on. And I love your take on this because it's so much deeper and layered. And I'd love for you to unpack that a little bit.
Yeah. I'm so glad that you bring that up and that you recognize it because it is very intentional. And when we create, let's start with the workout side of things. When we create these programs, girl, I am telling you, it takes us so long, months and months and months and months and months. And I have been choreographing workouts like this we launched Extend Bar in 2008. So this is not like I'm new at this, right? I've been doing this for years, right? Years and years. And
seasoned.
Yeah, it's seasoned. I could choreograph like in my sleep. You could put me on camera and I could do a workout and it, you know what I mean? I feel confident in that. But the point is that we are very specific in how we structure our workouts. So every single minute is optimized, not only from a strength perspective, but from a stamina, from a stability, and from a stretch. So same with Pilates, right? It's stretch, strength, stability, and stamina. Those 4 S's are what we look at. And then we think, okay, how can we move the body effectively in all planes of movement? Right. So if I'm working in, a transverse movement, the next movement you're going to see in sagittal. If I'm working in a turnout, you're going to see the next series is going to be in a more parallel position. If I'm flexing through my hip flexors and strengthening the hip flexors, you're going to see that I'm going to go into the glute stretch and a glute contraction and stretch through the hip flexors in the front. So everything is very, very intentional. And it's like, how can we get the most bang for our buck in those 30 minutes? So there isn't a moment that isn't intentional in those workouts. And then the sequential layering of those workouts is intentional. You can do out of order and still get incredible results, but there is a purpose driven behind the sequence and the order of it. So again, we choreograph it, we time it, we run it, we choreograph it, we time it, rerun it, we choreograph it, we time it, and then we record it again. I mean, I was choreographing the morning of every single workout, like after just reviewing, going, oof, I don't know, this move isn't feeling fluid for me. Like I want to feel fluid. If I'm not feeling fluid, they aren't feeling fluid. So let's change.
Love that.
So, yeah, just constantly evolving, but it's very intentional, and I live my life like that too. I'm very goal oriented. So I really focus on what it is that I want out of my life, what it is I want out of my my month, my year, my day, my week, like what I want out of that. And I'm very intentional about, okay, here is what I'm going to do today to make progress. That's what it really just comes down to, is making progress, not checking off an endless to-do list, because that doesn't make progress. So it's always about, what am I doing today that is going to make me feel like I progress towards that goal, or I feel that sense of stress relief, right? Like I always say, sometimes it's just like the boxes in the corner of the hallway that have to go to UPS, and damn it, they've been there for a week, and you just need to take the boxes to UPS and do the thing. And you don't want to do the thing, but every time you don't do it, you look at the boxes and you're like, you didn't do it. You didn't do it. You still didn't do it. You still didn't do it. And then when you do it, there's just this little wave of like, atta girl, now go do the next thing. And so the more atta girls that you can add to the day, the better you feel. And it can be something big or small, but it's just like defining what that is every day, being intentional with your time, being very intentional with your time so that you can progress and not just go, oh my God, I never stopped today. I never sat down. And then you look at your real to-do list and you're like, God, I still have so much to do. I didn't even get done the real things because you're doing busy work. So again, intentional with time, intentional with purpose, and then it's intentional with your progress.
Oh, Andrea, I love that so much. And I think one of the things that struck out to me, and it's such a motto, and I feel like you need to make some sort of a hashtag or something. It's like, atta girl.
Yeah.
Like that is such a powerful reminder, but so simple. It's like,
so simple.
right? And
don't
it
you
just
feel that, Kim?
Yeah.
Don't you feel that when you do something that you don't want to do, whether it's your workout or whether it's meal prepping or whether it's, sitting down and dedicating that time with your kids to do the grueling homework or whatever it is, making the bed, whatever that little or big or indifferent thing is during the day that you really don't feel like doing and have very little motivation to do, and then you do it, you do have that little atta girl moment, like, yeah, you got this, girl.
Yeah.
And it just creates a cycle of motivation. Like motivation doesn't wake you up in the morning, right? You don't wake up and you're like, I can't wait to do all the things. You don't. You just got to do them. And then once you do them, you feel the results from that. You feel that little bit of a high, that sense of accomplishment, that little bit of pride. And then that leads to motivation. That leads to repeating the cycle. And that's how you keep the momentum going. That's how you progress.
Yeah, I love that. I love that too. And that's, there's so much science and research around that motivation is so temporary, but it's momentum that will keep you going. And, I think that's for those that are listening, for those, especially those of you that are like, I do struggle with motivation. I think what Andrea just said was so profound, because we so often are like, I'm just not motivated. It's not about being motivated. It's not. It's exactly what Andrea just said. It's like it's those little things. It's those little atta girl. Like how many atta girl moments can you have in your day? Like and the more like I have shivers right now. I love
I
those.
love
Like
that.
yeah, I'm like, it's like how many more atta girl moments can I have in my day that lead to momentum? And I love what you said about checking the boxes because there's so many people that check a box or they check the task list and you nailed it on the busy work. You are a serial entrepreneur. I'm a serial
Yeah.
entrepreneur. I love impact. I love also building income. I
Yes.
love, I love all of that. And I think if you are so set on a task list or you're so set on the boxes, you actually miss the magic of the potential scale for impact.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, like you just nailed it. It's like there's this magic between the box. And it's like, and it's like that little corner in the top right corner outside of the box that because like you have that pride, you have that excitement, you have the momentum. Like, and I do wake up excited. Okay.
I
I'm
love it.
like, I'm ready. And I'm like, and I wake up and I'm like, I'm open. I'm open to whatever is supposed to be coming my way today. Because, and I know you feel this as well as a mom of daughters and single mama, like doing it,
Yeah.
like you're it. Like
Yeah.
you are it. You are it for to be, you are a role model. You are providing for them. Like that's also such, I'm sure it's such motivation for you to be like, I've got this. And you have beautiful, beautiful cargo on the line of why
Yeah.
you
And you know
also
what?
would
That's so true.
never
Yeah.
never let them down, right?
Yeah. And you know what? It's true. You know what you said in terms of waking up. I wake up every morning. I feel that instant gratitude. I really do. I know it sounds cheesy. I don't wake up every morning just ready to attack every little small thing in the day. Like I wake up with that gratitude. I wake up and I'm very intentional with what I do in with my mornings to set the
Mm.
tone.
Yep.
Which incorporates my breathing, my stretching, my skincare, my breakfast, sitting down, like doing my do the thing list. Like everything's very, very intentional. But on those days, and if you're someone like you or me who wake up and have that zest for life, or someone who wakes up and goes, I just had another day of like, Groundhog's Day, because we all have those days too. I think when you set the intention and you go through and you do the routine, you do the things, it just shifts your energy a little bit, right? And for me, it's always about movement. Like for me, movement is the foundation. We talked about this at our leadership conference, which is, I believe, if you move your body, you move your life, right?
Mm.
So for me, it's always about moving my body first in the morning because it sets the tone for me. It gives me all those happy hormones and it gets me going, right? It gives me that like atta girl, big atta girl. And then it sets the tone for the other, more mundane things that I have to sometimes do as part of being a business owner or a mom or a homeowner or whatever it is, right? All those task things that we have to do. So what I would suggest is pick the thing that gives you the biggest zest. Like pick the thing that makes you feel most accomplished, not the easiest thing, not like the simplest task, but pick the thing every day that when you accomplish it and you do it, you're going to feel that, that pride and that little, I always say like that little spark or that little zest, because it gives you that little bit of that spark. And when you have that spark, let it kind of spark the other things. So if you only can do that one thing that day, then maybe you only do that one thing that day, right? But hopefully it'll lead to other sparks along the way.
I love that. Andrea, do you have a Trent Shelton says this? He says, if you cannot have a morning routine if you do not have an evening routine.
Mm. Oh my
So,
God, you bet. I'm
yes.
like all routine.
Yeah. So tell me
I'm
about your
all
evening
routine.
routine. Tell me it. Tell us,
I'm like
tell
an
everyone.
all day life routine. And the funny thing is I'm very organized. Like I have to be very organized because that's how I thrive in organization.
Yeah.
But I also give room for flexibility. I'm not someone that's going to be like thrown off my, my wheel if all of a sudden, something changes in my schedule. I go with the
Yeah.
flow. I'm easy to like maneuver and manipulate and change things as they go. However, girl loves her routine. I love my schedule and I am so protective of my sleep. Everybody around me knows like it is a non-negotiable. Like my nighttime routine is like, don't mess with it. My girls know, everybody knows in my life. So yes, my evening routine is very is very regimented. It's
I
like,
love that.
after my dinner, I have either my tea or my bone broth every night. I stretch, I breathe, I clear my thoughts when I'm stretching. That's a whole nother podcast, but it's something that I do very intentionally so that when I close my eyes, I have let go of the worries. I have let go of the thoughts for tomorrow. I've let it sit. I haven't ignored it and I haven't just pushed it away. I gave it a moment and then I breathe through it and I let it go. So that way, when I close my eyes and I lie down, I am ready for sleep and I sleep well. And I'm very particular. I'm like, I gotta have my 8 hours when I'm shooting. Like, for example, when I'm in LA and I'm shooting, I went to bed every night at 8 a.m. at 8 p.m. Like it was 8 o'clock, lights off.
Yeah.
Shut it down and woke up about 6. So I needed like extra sleep on those days. And I protect it like I would protect my oxygen. It is just like I know I need it to thrive. And so yeah, I'm very regimented on my routine at night.
I love that. I think it's so important, because you see, and I've got one more question for you before we have to leave, but I want to say, this is so important to hear because you see, if there's that say success leaves clues, and it's important. That's why I love podcasting and I love interviewing because there are so many, I didn't know that even about your evening routine. There's so many things you don't know about everyone, but everyone has something that they're
It's so
figuring
true.
out and learning about each other and learning about themselves, and I think that that's really, that's profound for me. That's one area of weakness for me. So I really love what you just shared about the stretching. And I was even just thinking in my head.
Oh,
So for those of you that are listening, right, it's like, I just was thinking in my head, which I know I'm supposed to be strictly listening, but I was like, okay,
no, I wanted to, it's
I was like,
about,
that's a really good idea. I was like, that percolated me to be like, hey, Kim, you could put a yoga mat in the corner of your bedroom so you could just stretch before you go to bed rather than having to do it. So it could, but that was such a great, that's just this
and
one
that's
little nugget,
exactly
right?
it. Yes. And
Yeah.
I mostly stretch on my bed or side of bed
Love
every
that.
single night. And
Yeah.
stretching on your bed has so many benefits too, because it's such a comforting support system. And stretching
Yes.
can be uncomfortable in the beginning. When you stretch in bed, you're like have that soft support on your joints and it just under your bones. It just feels better to stretch on in bed. And so that is I cannot get into bed under the covers without stretching. It's
I
like
love that.
impossible. I don't care if I'm in a hotel. I don't care like where I'm at. I have to stretch. But the stretching and connection with the breathing and intentional thinking is the powerhouse. That is where like the real work happens because I know that we all do the same thing. We all go to bed and what happens? We just start to think,
Mm-hmm.
right? All the
Yeah.
worries feel 10 times heavier, all the tasks feel 10 times bigger. And so it just gives me a moment to like acknowledge it, figure out what I'm going to do with it, and then let it go and know that, tomorrow I will address whatever needs to be addressed. But it's like my power system.
Yeah, that's powerful. I really love that. And I'm so excited because I'm like, okay, I can edge some of this in there. So I just learned so much. All right, I have one last question for you. So, if you could go out for dinner with anyone, I'm going to say this, dead or alive,
Oh,
who would you want to go for dinner and have a conversation with and why?
well, I've been asked this question a few times and I have different answers in different seasons. So right now, the first person that comes to mind is Joseph Pilates because I'm in this Pilates, zone right now. So I would love to dig into his mind and ask a million questions and understand, beyond the biography books and the stories that we read in the articles that are consumed, what really was his, purpose and what was his intention with creating this type of program and what did he see in terms of the future and what does he think of it now, knowing that
Oh,
this program became this mainstream, not just a workout, right? Not like just but actually something that is just carried so many people through and become a physical therapy tool as well to help so many people regain strength, and which is what it was intentionally, right? So to
right.
see it go through this wave, so that's who I'd love to sit down and just have a nice conversation, share a cup of tea, and dig into all the beautiful facets of Pilates.
Oh, I love that. Well, thank you so much, Andrea. For everyone that is listening, in the show notes, you will see Andrea's sample workout. I will also be kicking off a new group in November, on November 6th, and we are going to be doing XB Pilates together, which I'm super excited about. And, thank you for your time today. You are one of a kind. We do need to have another podcast because we didn't get to skincare.
I know, we have to.
But we will.
We need to have a whole skincare topic one. Like, honestly, girl, you and I need like singular topics because we could talk for days.
The thing I was like, I have a framework in my head, but we're gonna do the skincare one next. So we'll just do a series. We're gonna do a series.
Absolutely, I'm all in.
Yeah,
all in.
I'm here for this. So thank you for your time. I know you've got to run and get the girls, but you are amazing. I appreciate you so much.
Kim, you are fantastic. I'm so grateful to have your friendship, and thanks for this. This was fun.
I'm excited. All right. Thanks, everyone.
I said hi.
I sure will. Okay, bye.